G'day guys, this is just a quick little video to talk about awesome little telephoto lens, the Panasonic Lumix 35-100. Picked this lens up on eBay. It was about $180 Australian. It's a zoom lens. Unfortunately, it's not electronic zoom, it's only mechanical only. But despite what I'd read before buying it, it works perfectly okay on the Zenmuse X5 and the Inspire. So the lens weighs about 140 grams from memory, and that's a little heavy for the gimbal, considering the I think it's the Lumix 15mm or DJI 15mm weighs about 115 grams. So it is a little on the heavy side, but it didn't take much at all to balance it out. And I'll show you the procedure for how I did that and how it works. Okay, so I've got my regular Zenmuse X5 here, and we'll pop the Lumix 35-100 on. Fits on quite comfortably. As you can see, without any balance, even fully retracted, the lens is a little nose heavy. Probably no more than the 45mm unbalanced, so to run it at that focal length of 35mm probably isn't such an issue, and I reckon the gimbal handles it okay. The issue becomes when we zoom in, which is sort of what everyone will want to buy the lens for, and get the full 100mm out of it. You can see it topples quite heavily there. So the obvious solution is to add some counterweight to the back of the gimbal. I'll run through how I made my counterweights. Also made them removable and attached them with 3M dual lock. It's similar to Velcro if you haven't heard of it, just a little bit stronger. Unfortunately, it's a little thicker, and I was scratching for clearance. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. So I'll show you my lead weights and how I made them. Okay, so these are my two little lead weights. Well, this one's lead, this one's just a $1 coin. So for the bulk of the weight, I made it out of lead because I was struggling for room. Initially I just used a couple of 50-cent coins, and it wasn't enough to clear the rear of the gimbal. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about when I stick the weights on, you'll understand. But to make this little half moon shape, I simply started with a base of a Coke can, and I cut the bottom off a Coke can, popped it on the stove top, and then smelted down about 52 grams of lead, and I just used regular sinkers for fishing sinkers. So I smelted down 52 grams of lead. Now, I know you're going to say that's a lot. Well, it's actually half as much as I ended up using. So I did that so that I could get the nice little half moon shape. So 52 grams of lead cut in half ended up getting 26 grams. And to correct for the roll, given that this ends up mounted on one side, to correct for the roll, I simply just got a Australian $1 coin. I think they weigh about 6 grams from memory. I looked it up and stuck some dual lock on the back of that as well. So I'll show you the finished product when it's actually mounted onto the gimbal and the camera. Okay, so I'm going to get my X5, and where I've stuck the dual lock on the back of it, I'm just going to attach the weight that's perfectly shaped. A little hard to see because it's all black, but I'll just click him on there, and we'll have a look at it. Of course, I have to extend it out. It's balanced for the 100mm focal length. So you see it's balanced in pitch there, no problem at all. But we got this roll issue going on. So that's where the $1 coin comes in handy. 6 grams, simply stick it on the edge on the pitch motor, and it balances it out quite well. I'm sure there's a million ways to skin this cat, but that's the way I come up with. Now the important part about this half moon shaped lead on the back is that if we look at that angle there, it only just clears. You notice I had to mount it to one side because of the roll motor comes down, and it only just clears there. But also, and and didn't find this out at first until the second attempt, that when the camera's in the fully pitched down position, it needs to clear the yaw motor as well. So if you see there, it only just clears, and that's why I ended up going with the half moon shape to get the total amount of lead a bit sort of evened out, and it just seems to clear all the way there, and I'm pretty happy with it. So that's it, balanced and ready to go, and we'll pop it on the Inspire and have a look at it. Okay, so here we have the 35 to 100mm lens on the Inspire, and I'll just power it on. We'll watch it do its little wake up dance. There we go, spinning around, calibrating itself quite happily. And of course, once it's connected, which I think it is now, we can drive the lens around with the remote. No problem at all. One thing to be extra careful of is the clearance. Obviously at full extension and at 100% pitch, the lens is going to clash with the ground, so it's always a good idea to bring the lens up to the horizon, particularly with this one, just before you land, to avoid it scraping like that. Okay, so here's the lens in action. Obviously we're able to pitch and pan it around. The autofocus works very responsively, has a good time, and yeah, certainly no issues there. One thing I've got to say, this lens is incredibly sharp for what I expected. I read a couple of reviews and people comparing it to the 45mm lens by Olympus, and obviously we're not going to get as sharp as a prime, but given that this is 2.2 times tighter again than the Olympus 45mm on an aerial platform, that means a lot. And I set out and did a little test. I took basically 2 photos of a light pole that I was inspecting, both from the same distance, one with the Olympus 45mm f1.8 and the other with this Lumix 35 to 100. Basically the idea was to take a photo of a nameplate on the light and see which lens produced the better image overall, and that meant zooming in digitally in post on the 45mm to get the same framing as what the 100mm could produce with no digital zoom, and the results were exactly what I expected. Using the 100mm lens, I'm able to get a much better image from the same distance than I am out of the slightly sharper 45mm prime. So definitely a good thing to have in the kit. Pretty easy to balance, a little bit of mucking around, but 26 grams of weight on the rear and 6 grams of weight on the right hand side, and no problem at all. Hope you enjoyed the video.